natural. But 2 Corinthians 4:18 says, the things that we see are temporal. They're temporary. They're subject to change. Anything we see in the natural is subject to change. But the things that are not seen, those are the things that are eternal. Those things we don't see. That's where we've got to say, God, you're the God of giving me things that are not seen in the natural. And so I need to ask myself over and over, whose report am I going to believe? Okay, Hebrews 10:35 and 36 says, don't throw away your confidence. So many times when we don't see it happen immediately, we throw away our confidence. But he said, don't throw away your confidence, which has great reward. For you need patience so that after you have done the will of God, because sometimes when you're praying for a healing, God will tell you something you need to do. After we've done the will of God, you will receive the promise. I love this next testimony. I tell it nearly everywhere I go because it blessed me so much. It's helped me more than probably most things that I've learned. But my friend Crystal, I don't know whether all of you know her, but she went to our church. And her son, when he was pretty young, he was just barely old enough, he joined the service, and because he had always wanted to be in the military. Well, she got a letter telling her that her son had been killed in the service. And she said that the minute she got that letter, she said she wadded it up and threw it down. And then she said, well, that's not going to work. So she unwadded it, and she said she just began going through the house, waving it and saying, God, and speaking in tongues and saying, God, I'm not receiving this. I have a covenant with the God of the universe. Well, finally, she got out her Psalm 91 covenant. She said she placed it beside the letter, and she said, I can't believe both of these. And she said, I believe you, Lord. I'm not putting that down. And she said the thought crossed her mind to call her husband, get him to pray. Then she said, no, I'm not supposed to do that. And so she said for 2 hours or more, she just walked through the house, just at the top of her lungs, saying her covenant, saying, God, I'm not receiving anything less than my covenant. And she was proclaiming that promise over her son. She said then all of a sudden she felt like she was supposed to call the number on that letter. So she did, and she called him, and she said, you must have made a mistake. My son is not dead. I mean, that took a lot of nerve. That had to have been God really working in her. And she said she did that in faith, and they thought she had talked to him. And so they said, we cannot believe we've made that kind of mistake. And they said, we'll get back with you. Well, she said it was another 2 hours or more before they got back. And she said that whole time she was just confessing her covenant, walking through the house. God, I've got a covenant with you. Well, when they did call back, they were apologizing for making such a horrible mistake. Well, when her husband got home, she told him, he said, oh, I'm glad you didn't call me. He said, I would have ruined your faith. So he said, it's a good thing you didn't call. But anyway, they didn't tell, they had 2 boys. Both the boys were married. When her son got home, they invited, of course, the 2 boys and their wives, and they had this big welcome home dinner and this celebration that he was home. And when the dinner was over, she brought out this letter and she laid it on the table in front of them. And they passed it around. And she said, literally, she thought they were never going to say anything. She said they just sat there and they couldn't say anything. And she said they just stood and stared, And but the word is true, And thank God he was a precious young man. And but sometimes we have to stand our ground in defiance of the enemy and refuse to believe Satan's lie. That one really impressed me. I thought, oh, Lord, I don't know whether I could have done that. I hope I would have. But her son's still alive today, And so I thank God for that.